Welcome ladies and gentlemen at the Escape Pod. We really appreciate you being here with us. So this godforsaken year is almost over, we are slipping into the new year 2021, Christmas is just around the corner, and we are beginning the last review, the last inspection of 2020. As you guys already know, we put 3-4 hours into each game, and at the end of the video we rate the whole bundle, so you can determine if you want to buy it or it's a pass for you. I'm Golly, I'm here with Victor. Let's see what Humble Choice has given us this month. Let the reviews roll!
One Step from Eden is a roguelike mix-up between a deck builder and a rhythm game that also supports local co-op and local PvP. As for the plot, your guess is as good as mine. 4 hours in, I haven't managed to catch anything in the whole wide world, so for me, the plot is a group of girls got into a fight on the dance floor, now they are out to destroy the world over it. Gameplay wise, I think it'll be best if I walk you through it. First, you'll pick from one of the mostly female characters, who come with different starting decks, artifacts and innate weapons, which will set the tone for your experience during the run. Starting out, you won't have a choice, but you'll unlock more and more options as you leave rounds behind you. You're then placed into the first fight of the run, which takes place in a 4x8 grid, left 4x4 being your area, right being the enemy's. You can interact with the enemy via your deck, you'll have the top 2 cards available for use, hitting the corresponding button will initiate your attack at the crosshairs. This is also where the rhythm part I mentioned earlier comes into play, as every enemy has well telegraphed attack patterns, which if you learn the pattern of, you'll be able to avoid with ease. Once you've defeated all opponents, time to reap the sweet rewards of your work, which consists of cards you can add to your deck, cash you can spend in the shop, artifacts and such. All rewards claimed, you'll plan your way to the end of the stage. Different icons will indicate different types of encounters, ranging from simple fights to shops, mini-bosses and so on. Occasionally, you'll come across fights with hostages involved. If you can manage to keep them alive, they'll also reward you with goodies, usually healing, but every now and then money as well. At the end of each level, you'll have to fight a random boss of given biome, then you get to decide what level to visit next. Though the pixel art of this game is charming, I feel it's safe to say this game won't steal any prom crowns with its looks, especially on the back of the clusterfuck of the UI it's sporting. What it has going for it though is the metric tons of content and replayability, a surprisingly addictive fun core gameplay loop, and thus it offers a bargain for your bucks. Don't sleep on this title.
Children of Morta is a story-driven hack-and-slash game with roguelike elements. Developed by Dead Mage and published by 11-bit Studios. The game is about the Bergson family's struggle against the darkness that leaks from Mount Morta, with both family ties, character diversity and roguelike elements. You will be playing as one of the family members of the Bergson family. All of the playable characters are unique and feels like different classes. You'll get the fighter, the rogue, the archer, the hunter, the monk, the mage, the druid, you name it. The game is very story-driven. As the game progresses, the story is very much in the center of the game. You will learn about the world, you will learn about the inhabitants, the story of different cities, all the gods and the demigods of the universe. And most importantly, you will be learning a lot from the family, about each and every family member, their ties, their future, their past, their relationship with each other, their hopes and dreams, which was a very neat touch to the game actually, and I really enjoyed this part. The graphics are nice, I'm still a sucker for pixel art, and I really enjoyed how the different worlds looked like, and the overall scenery around the Bergson house, and especially the Bergson's house. It looked so beautiful. When it comes to the fighting and the dungeons, it is really nice. You got your dodges, rolls and evades, and you get the different fighting styles for each different characters. The overall difficulty is around mid-level. It's not too hard, but it isn't easy as well. So I died a couple of times, but I never felt truly defeated like I would have in Dark Souls. While most of the upgrades you earn are universal, individual levels are not. This means you have two choices if you intend to play as more than one character. Either proceed through the game very slowly as you keep everyone's level balanced, or you periodically halt your progress in order to grind out levels with your B team. Also, each and every character has a passive skill that you can unlock at different levels for each family members, like passive health regen, more armor, faster attacks, faster movement speed, and so on. So you will have to kind of balance and grind every level for every character, which can be tedious, to be honest. But still, I didn't mind playing and trying out all the characters because they are quite different in a way that it always felt fresh to replay each and every level. So overall, this game is a banger for me. It's an absolute pick, and I would suggest to everyone who likes roguelites and dungeon crawling, and sometimes, losing and retrying. It really does a wonderful style and a wonderful story, so yeah, pick it and try it out.
Grandma had already sacrificed herself for them. There would be no more sacrifices.
Shining Resonance Refrain is a classic JRPG, originally released back in 2014 for PlayStation 3, ported to PC in 2018. With that being said, you can imagine the graphics quality of a 6-year-old console release. It's definitely not gonna be your source of visual orgasms. Music is nothing memorable, but it serves its purpose just fine. As for the story, game begins with you playing Sonia on a mission to boost out Yuma from captivity, who, you'll soon find out, carries a dragon's soul inside him, which he can set loose to transform into the greatest dragon ever to have soared the skies of Astoria. Oh, and by the way, he also has a massive sword sticking out of his forehead. Not that that's anything special, mind you. Imagine being this guy and trying to tackle the burger you ordered for lunch. As it usually is with games of this genre, the world is divided into separate, closed areas where enemies and random pickups spawn. You'll traverse these segments on your way to quest locations or just to farm up loot and XP. Note that you can completely avoid non-boss encounters, but as expected, this would leave you painfully underleveled. Combat, I find, at least for the first few hours, is completely uninspired and rather imitates a chore than fun gameplay. You attempt to run at enemies from behind in hopes to achieve an ambush, giving you a few seconds of advantage in the fight, then you'll keep slapping your attack button until the enemy drops, hoping to break the opponent at some point so you'll deal more damage on the way. You can swap your controlled character or just assign behaviors to the party. If you control Yuma, you can spend your mana to transform into Swordhead Dragon, with the risk of your power going berserk if you stay in the form for too long, which sounds like an interesting risk-reward type of gameplay, but in practice, it just seemed to happen randomly, completely ruining the fun. Story seems to be interesting, but I probably won't stick around to get to the bottom of it due to the dull gameplay. Oh, and also there's a side game of inviting your female party members over for some late night talkie time to form relationships with them if you're in for that sort of gameplay. All in all, Shining Resonance for me is just another JRPG that can't hook me with its gameplay, but that I wish was rather an anime series I could watch for the sake of the story.
Tabletop Playground is a digital tabletop sandbox game. In this game, you can play chess, tabletops, cards, different tile-based games, air hockey, and cooperative tabletops as well with your friends. Or at least this is what the game advertises. So, me and Victor tested out this game and tested out the air hockey, chess, different tabletops. We did a round of Carcassonne as a test, and we tried to join the online games, but no one ever hosted anything, to be honest. So how this game works, it has a couple of games integrated in it as a basic tabletop, but there is an online page where you can subscribe to different games in order to download the assets. Then after that you can host the game or join to different parties because you already have access to those assets and you can play the game. It all sounds great, but as I mentioned earlier, this game is dead. I've checked the Steam charts during the test when me and Victor played, and the concurrent player base was 22 at the time of the test, and the top was in the last half of a year 32, which means it is basically a dead game, which is problem 1. Problem 2, we figured that every tile-based game is very fiddly, because especially when it came to Carcassonne, you can't really put those tiles together. You really have to play with the axis, the XYZ axes, in order to basically put together a tile set based game in order to work. Then we played a couple of rounds of air hockey, but it also felt really bad. It didn't really work, the assets were buggy, and somehow we didn't manage to get it work. After that we played some card games, Cards Against Humanity, Uno and stuff like that, and with card games it works flawlessly, and that should be the way. But still, if you don't have a friend to play with, well then you're pretty much screwed. So don't pick this game if you don't have friends to play with. That's it. Next please!
Zwei, the Arges Adventure, and the Ilvard Insurrection are 2 peas in one pod, so I'll be discussing them together. Arges Adventure was originally released back in 2001, while the Ilvard Insurrection followed suit in 2018. Core concept of the 2 games is the same. You will be diving deep into different dungeons, fighting your way through foes, solving puzzles that block your way, and becoming ever stronger to take a shot at tougher and tougher dungeons. Arges follows the story of Pipiro and Pokul as they head out to capture a mysterious dude that stole the village's sacred, albeit worthless, statues, while Ilvard tells the tale of the treasure hunter Ragnar and the vampire princess Alven. Latter saves Ragnar's life via a blood pact that transforms him into a blood knight. Thus, Ragnar is left in debt, and to make up for it, attempts to help Alven regain her lost palace and powers. I must say, not only does Ilvard seem to be a more interesting story after the first few hours, but this game also comes with one of the most unexpected, yet baller intro cutscenes I've seen lately. It's already worthy of an install, just on that note. With regards to dungeon crawling, there's a huge difference between predecessor and successor. In Arges Adventure, you'll experience something as dull and unimaginative as previously mentioned Shining Resonance, where you keep whacking on your attack key for hours on end. There's theoretically a crit system in here as well. If you time your attack just right, you'll get increased damage, but it just feels clunky to focus on. Au contraire, Ilvard Insurrection offers a much more streamlined experience, where beyond smashing your attack button, you now have a quasi-dodge move as well, in the form of jumping. Just this minor nuance was enough to up the gameplay experience by miles. The puzzles I came across so far were all reasonable. I don't have any complaints on that front. Both games sport an interesting experience system in the form of stuffing your tummy. As you adventure, you'll put your hands on different food items that fulfill 2 purposes at once. On one hand, they are your source of health regen. Should you find yourself in a rough spot, nom down some meatballs and you're already back at full health. On the other hand though, eating the various food items is your only source of XP as well. This is where we reach Catch-22. Should you be able to resist the urge to nom down everything at first sight, you can take your loot back to the inn and exchange 10 of the same items for one that is superior. Let's say you find 10 apples worth 1 experience point each. If you take it back to the inn, you'll get 1 banana for the lot, but that'll be worth 15 XP. I found this idea fascinating and a fun minigame of risk and reward. There's also a huge difference in the way leveling feels between the 2 titles. In Arges, you start out doing no damage, slog your way through a level or 2 in a few hours, and still run around dealing no damage. At the same time in Ilvard, you can actually feel the result of leveling. Your previously constant 1 damage now pops to 2, maybe even 3, as it should, and it's a satisfying sight to behold. Summa summarum, Arges I found to be slow and repetitive, but its successor, Ilvard, is a real treat if you don't mind the art style, so my recommendation would be give it a go.
Path of Giants is a snow-themed, short traversal puzzle adventure game. The story is about 3 explorers trying to find their way in search of a lost treasure. The game is based on teamwork, meaning you will have to control each and every character. The characters are not named, they are only defined by their colors: green, yellow and blue. And with each other's help, they will have to find their way till the end of each puzzle. The puzzles are quite well designed and they are quite fun. I have to admit, they are not on the very hard side of things, but more on the relaxing puzzle side of things. The graphics are really beautiful and the animations are spot on. And it goes hand in hand with the nice music and relaxing atmosphere. So overall, it's a really nice puzzle game, albeit very short. You can finish it in 3 or 4 hours, but you can feel how much passion and love went to this indie game. And it's funny because the developers are wife and husband, meaning this is truly their child of love. So I can only suggest this game, and if you like puzzle games, don't wait up, support these developers because they are making great games. And I would like to see more indie games like this.
Struggling is a perfectly titled co-op platformer, which is probably my worst gaming experience of 2020. Story starts off with an appealing looking cutscene invoking Greek mythology and the arrival of Hector and Achilles, whom are to arrive and save the world. Unlucky for everyone, the duo arrive a few hundred years later than expected, waking up in the form of some disgusting Siamese mutation in green goo. Gameplay is about controlling 2 arms of the abomination, separately, to maneuver through the levels, the twist being that each arm is controlled separately. If you're playing co-op, each player controls one of the 2 arms. If you roll solo, you'll control both separately. In case of a controller, for example, you'll use the thumbsticks for movement. If you're familiar with Heave-Ho, you'll know what to expect. Sounds are hella annoying. You'll be listening to groans, moans, barfs and screaming for hours on end. Visuals play off a similar vibe. Even though the art is crisp, with a great palette and solid lines, the topic is disgusting. Even worse though is the control of the arms. Barely ever did I feel like they're doing what I would actually expect them to do, based on the motions of my sticks, which results in never-ending frustration. I imagine the catch of this title is supposed to be the 2 players raging at each other while attempting to solve puzzles, but I found struggling so hideous that I'd be ashamed to drag someone into playing it with me. I'd recommend you rather spend your time doing the dishes or staring at the wall, either sounds more fun to me.
Frog Detective 1 and 2. I will talk about these games as one, as they are part 1 and part 2 of the same series. So, in the first one, as a frog detective, you will get the case of a haunted island, which is a very good premise, to be honest. So I jumped into the game, and first thing first, the graphics looks as it is, nothing positive, it's more on a negative side. It is very basic, but it also adds charm to the game. So after the first 3 minutes, which is an introductory to the world, you're the frog detective, the second best detective of this office, because the first one is Officer Crab. You will get the case to an island which is haunted, you will have to find the ghost. And after that you go to the island by a boat and start investigating. And here is when the game turned boring as hell, to be honest. Basically, as a detective you question everybody and for some reason you fulfill their needs in order to get more information. and information about the world. And this information doesn't really add to the game, it's more like backstories and trying to be funny one-liners. And this is my first and biggest problem with this game. The characters aren't very good and they are not funny. They are trying to be funny. When it comes to the first part of the series, I exhaled twice a bit faster as a semi-laugh. And when it comes to the second part of the story, I didn't laugh at all. So that is a big letdown. The games themselves are very short, around 40 minutes, 1 hour, an hour and a half if you want to get all the achievements for both of the games, which I did because I'm a completionist. All in all, these games aren't worth it, I have to say. If you are getting all the games, obviously try it. Maybe you will get the whole concept. I felt like it is more like a children game than an adult's game. So, I don't know, try it. If you don't get the whole package from the humble choice and you're getting only 3 or 6 games or 9, it's a total pass. There are much better games in this bundle than these two, so choose those instead.
Overcooked is a cooking simulator, preferably played by 2 to 4 players, either online or via local co-op. Apparently, you can also play via Steam's remote play system, but hell if we manage to get that working. Might just be us being clueless, but we opted to get a copy for the girlfriend instead and play that way. As for gameplay, you'll be playing one of the many chefs that differ only in appearance, attempting to fulfill the orders of your never-ending line of customers. Story is a serviceable piece of fluff to walk you through the different levels of the campaigns, a few decent jokes, but nothing memorable really. What is memorable though, is the core gameplay loop. At the beginning of the levels, you'll be introduced to the recipes and techniques required to prepare the dishes you are to serve. You're then dropped into a tailor-made kitchen that is designed to make your life difficult. From the COVID-approved basics of the cooks being split apart, through random customers walking up and down the scene, or different areas of the kitchen floating apart as you're cooking on hot air balloons. Success is measured in a star system you get based on how much money you've earned by correct and timely delivery of the orders. Throughout the game, I found the system is fair, many times easy to max out on first attempt, every now and then requiring some more coordination to pass. As a side note, we got stuck on level 2.6 for an hour, thinking the game is bugged and not counting our complete orders, when in reality we were just delivering massive amounts of incorrect recipes, so make sure you're actually cooking what you're supposed to. Should you clear the campaign and find yourself wanting more, the game offers a versus mode as well, where you'll be facing off against another chef or chefs, aiming to score higher than your opponent when the timer runs out. Visuals are charming, sound and music is also perfect for the theme. I've got nothing bad to say on these fronts either really. With that and the girlfriend's seal of approval, I can only recommend you give Overcooked 2 a go and enjoy the mayhem it offers.
Indivisible. The game itself is about a little girl called Anja, who is trying to revenge her father's death and the ransacking of her village. Right at the start of the game, the player faces the person who is responsible for the aforementioned cases, and after a short fight, the opponent gets sucked into Anja's head as a prisoner. Anja, with this newfound power of hers, hits the road to stop the conquering emperor. As the game progresses, you will get more and more characters into Anja's head and they will talk to you during your quest. It will be a nice addition if it worked. The characters have next to no development. Moments into the game, the main character has little to no reaction to her father's passing. Worse, she seems okay with his murderer. Also, as the time progresses, she simply forgets the original motivation and she is mostly just being annoyed with the murderer in her head. Indivisible calls itself an action RPG, however, it lacks the RPG elements. There are no serious leveling, there are no skill trees, no equipment. The characters lacks movesets, so you will be ending up repeating the same combos for most of the enemies. The combat system is so simple, there is really nothing to it. There is no rhyme or reason or incentive to do anything, just hitting the enemy. The gameplay is extremely linear. Most of the time you just go straight or jumping up and down. The game will tease you often with areas you can't open or get to, but you often leave those areas without ever opening or going back to those places. The whole world feels disjointed and disconnected because you're constantly getting warped from place to place with no way of returning. It makes exploring feel awful. The only positive I found about this game is the graphics and the music, because that really sells the whole world, but that's it. In conclusion, I just simply cannot suggest this game. Graphics are good, but the gameplay has major problems. It could have been a great game, but it falls really short.
Try harder. Not gonna happen.
The Beast Inside, not to be confused with The Beast Within, is a first-person horror thriller spiced with some sweet puzzle sections. The sound and music section is neat, it'll keep you on your toes when it wants to, otherwise it'll be something pleasant in the background. As for visuals, it's clearly a work of passion. Most everything is impressive, with the occasional outlier. Looking at you, Emma. As a side note, can't just walk past my pet peeve, that's also frequent in this title. The idea of your player base being so incompetent that you have to point out every step of an adventure by obnoxiously out of place coloring of items. I think this trend was started by one of the Tomb Raider games some time ago, though I might be wrong on that. Point is, I hate how immersion breaking this whole concept is. Other than that though, as I was saying earlier, this game is a real treat for the eyes to behold. Gameplay wise, you'll be alternating between two characters, namely Adam, a cryptanalyst from the Cold War era, and Nicholas, who starts investigating a murder in the Civil War era. When playing as Adam, you'll be fighting Russian spies by breaking code and investigating their presence around your new home. Puzzles, for me, are so far the highlight of the game. None of them made me sweat, but were on the sweet side of trouble/satisfaction dynamic. As you progress through the story, you'll come across diary entries from the past that are the means of swapping character to Nicholas and his troubles in the past. These sections of the game are the ones that focus hard on the horror/thriller aspect, which is supposedly the meat and bone of the game, but to be perfectly honest, so far, to me, seemed the much weaker side of the Beast Inside. This title is packed full of jump scares that, I kid you not, after shitting my pants 5 times in the first hour or so, I literally became immune to them, and instead of being a tool in the dev's toolbox, they become a constant source of annoyance instead, poisoning the tense mood building. Beyond that, I've come across a chase sequence and a boss fight, out of which neither felt weighty, rather chore-like. I must admit though, I am hooked into the story. I'm curious to see how deep the stories of the two main characters are intertwined and how it all plays out. I just wish there was less of the Nicholas type of gameplay and more of the Adam part, and also that there was less immersion breaking. Further to the earlier mentioned colorized items, it's just as grounding how the game treats solid wood planks like they are band-aids on a boo-boo, or the recurring plot conveniences. Just as an example, there's a section where instead of climbing an approximately 2 meters high wooden fence, Adam figures there's no way in, and he should rather climb down into a mine shaft, as that appears to be the correct course of action. With all that being said, I don't want to downplay Beast too much. If you're a fan of the horror genre, I'm positive you'll find a game that's worthy of your time here, and even if you're someone like me, who doesn't go out of their way to play horror titles, the interesting puzzles and story might keep you playing.
Still There is a story-driven puzzle game developed by Ghost Shark. You will be playing as Carl Hamba, a sole operator of a space station called the Bento. The whole story is about you living there with your only companion as Gorky, the AI. As you will be playing Carl, you will be facing with lingering grief and some mysterious transmissions from outer space. When you first boot up the game and look around in the space station, you are going to be shocked how many controls, buttons, keys, rooms, and tech are there around you. On the very first day, I wasn't ready to face all these challenges. I had a really hard time just to make coffee for myself in the morning. After somehow I managed to do my coffee, I had to figure out how to recycle my own urine just to make water. Luckily there was an AI, Gorky, as previously mentioned on the ship, who helped me, and also you can find a manual for the space station, which will be really helpful for you, because without it you're going to have a hard time to solve the puzzles. Overall, this game is really good. The compelling story and characters make it easy to just go on and follow the story. And for those who like challenging puzzles, it's a game you should get. As the story goes on, you will be facing several hard psychological issues, and as been told, Carl is having a lingering grief because of some very sad things that happened to him. So if you're ready for this kind of stuff, definitely pick this game. I can only recommend it.
So what did we get from Humble Center this year? If you won for the Eastern art style, you'll definitely get your money's worth in the form of Eden, Indivisible, Shining and the 2 Zwei games. You can jump closer back to realistic graphics with the Tabletop Playground or the Beast Inside, and should Letter make you throw up, you'll see Struggling. Then, to calm your nerves, you shall relive your childhood crafting vibes with the Frog Detective games, get lost in the visuals of Still There, and round out your experience with the Giants, Overcooked and Morta. Quality-wise, our monthly top contenders are Eden, Morta, Overcooked, Giants, Beast and the Ilvard Insurrection, which is a nice amount of good quality games, but unfortunately, we also have more than usual low quality titles in the form of Struggling, the 2 Frog entries, Tabletop Sim and Indivisible. Argus, Shining and Still There didn't per se captivate us, but they'll most likely cause many hours of fun for a lot of you out there. This sums up to be a total of 29 points out of the maximum 42. As a note, this month's choice also includes a free month of EA Play for newcomers, but as it's only a €5 discount for the regulars, I'll call bullshit on this one and will pretend it never happened. Please don't hesitate to please the YouTube machine gods by slapping the like button if you enjoyed what you saw. Should you drop us some feedback in the form of a comment, you'll be eligible for our Overcooked 2 giveaway, as Golly already owned a copy of that game. And if you'd like to come along with us on a similar experience in the new year, subscribing will keep you up to date. I wish you all a peaceful holiday period and a happy new year. See you in 2021.